people feel democracy is not working for them. What are the solutions? What does community wealth have to offer us here? In Burnaby, in British Columbia, just outside Vancouver, people had that same feeling, and they were developing an official community plan. And typically that's done by the government and no one gets involved. So they set up a community assembly with 40 people chosen by civic lottery. They're chosen at random to sit together. And over 6 months, they learned, they heard from experts, they heard from community voices, and they considered recommendations for their new official community plan. They made 24 recommendations, and these basically were all, accepted by the city and built into the community plan. This goes a step further in Frome in Somerset, where they have developed a thing called flat pack democracy. So this basically started in 2015 when 10 independent candidates said, we're fed up with the council and the old division between Labour and Conservative fighting each other. And they all got elected, kicking out the party-based councillors. So once elected, they adopted a cooperative approach to governance. I've got a list of what they got up to here because it's really impressive. And they invited everyone to get involved. This is the book they wrote about flat pack democracy. And I need to go back a second and stay with their people there. They set up a citizens' climate assembly. They created a £30,000 citizens' budget when people could decide how the money was spent. They invited people to present ideas at a Dragon's Den, where they could vote for their favorite project. They created a publicly funded food bank, a car sharing scheme, a new social gathering spot called the Cheese and Grain. They used community interest shares to buy a field for local allotments. They launched Fair Frome to address chronic issues of poverty. They founded an electric car club. They founded the Frome Renewable Energy Cooperative. They developed a climate emergency strategy. They engaged volunteers to tackle the pandemic. And in 2019, all 17 independents by then won their seats again in a heavily contested election. Different political views, different backgrounds, but they love their city. And when a bit of land came up called Saxonvale, it's a 12-acre brownfield site in the middle of town, which typically would have been developed by a developer. They said, let's develop this entire project ourselves. Let's get together and redesign what our community could look like. And they've got their plans, they've got their ideas, and they're in the process of actually raising the capital needed. It's a complicated game. They're using a community share launch to raise the capital needed for a huge project to become the developers themselves. The town of Cascais on the coast of Portugal has taken participatory budgeting to the next level. So instead of the council deciding how all the money is spent, they have a process. Hang on a sec, I need to read this out. Where 15% of the council's budget every year is decided by a carefully designed participatory budgeting process. And it lasts a whole month of face-to-face discussions. So people can propose ideas, ponder them, and vote for their favorites. And the more people who vote, the more money is distributed to their projects. So not only does it get more people involved, but it also increases voting at the higher level.